Hi everyone, we're going to get started. So first of all, thank you for coming to the Kangaree 7 unit leader meeting. The unit leader is such an important role for us at Kangaree, and you're going to find out a little bit more about it because you're not just a normal Joey leader with your unit, you'll be so much more for us during this activity. Before I start, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands in which we're meeting on today. Being a Zoom meeting, we're meeting on the lands of many different Indigenous peoples. So I pay my respects to all Indigenous peoples, both and anyone that may be with us today. So our elders past, present and emerging. Our agenda today, there we go. Our agenda today looks a bit like this. So you'll have myself for a bit of welcoming and housekeeping. You'll have Jess as our General Manager for Catering, Janice as our GM for Health, Chris as our Deputy Director for People and Wellbeing. You'll have Jackie and Eric talk about administration and finance, and then it will be back to me to talk about some activities and sites and services. But first of all, what's the role of a Kangaree unit leader? A Kangaree unit leader has such an important role for us. And it's not just a leader in charge of their Joey Scouts. As a Kangaree unit leader, you'll be one of the few selected to look after an entire Kangaree unit. A Kangaree unit is approximately about 50 people, so Joeys and adults within your activity rotation groups. The idea of a Kangaree unit leader is to support the Kangaree management team. So that's us. You'll act as a line of communication between us and leaders in the lines. You'll act as a central person for the pick up and drop off of wristbands and merchandise. So all the goodies that you get when you get to Kangaree. You'll act and assist the Kangaree team where possible to ensure that we have as much information to support us and you. This is in the way of dietaries. So Jess will talk about that in a bit later, and health information that the people and wellbeing really need your assistance on. The role of a Kangaree unit leader is at its core is to help make sure that all of you leaders are heard and supported during the event. And we find it's such an important role for us at Kangaree. Please ensure that you can ask us anytime for help and assistance, and we can't wait to go on this journey with you. The role of a Kangaree unit leader is so vital in ensuring that our event runs smoothly. So sit back, relax, and hear out what we have to say. Make sure you ask questions and get in contact with us at info@kangaree.com if you have any questions.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the intro, James. It's wonderful to be here and see lots of you. It's really exciting as we're coming very close to Kangaree, less than 4 weeks away, so not long to go now. As James said, there's a bunch of information I'd like to take you through. I don't seem to be able to share at the moment though, Cara, perhaps I need to be given access again.
You should have access.
Oh, there we go. Good now. Thank you. All right. All right. Can you all see my screen okay?
Yes, we can.
Fabulous. Okay. All right. So there's a bunch of info I want to take you through. We'll start with mealtime. This is a timetable that you will have received, or if you haven't yet, you'll be getting it very soon. And this timetable is going to become really, really, really important for you. Each of the units is given a colour, and that colour is then how you look at this timetable. So if you're, let's say, in red, one of the red units, let's step through what the timetable would be. So we've got when the buses arrive, and then you'll see you're starting with activity number 2 is the first activity that you'll be doing. And then you'll see dinner is marked there. You'll also see on the left when Wombat Hollow is open and not open. For anyone who hasn't been to Kangaree before, Wombat Hollow is a great place where you can just drop in or out. If you just want to keep the Joeys occupied for 10 minutes or 30 minutes, that's a really great space where you can drop in and out. And then you'll see on the next day, on the Saturday, you'll go over, there's breakfast to start with, and then activity 4, and then so on. So it's really important to have a look at this timetable to understand when your meal time will be. The meal times are all staggered, you'll see, by 15 minutes, and that's because we have to get about 500 people into the dining room and seated in each of those 15-minute blocks. So we do really need to make sure that you please arrive at your time. As tempting as it might be to come to the dining hall early, or as easy as it might be to get tied up and come late, that really will cause problems with traffic flow. So do please refer to this timetable and make sure that you're coming to the dining hall at your allocated time. We've also made sure that we've allowed enough time. There's an hour for having each meal, which should be plenty of time to help all your Joey Scouts eat. And then you'll notice that there's always at least a 15-minute break to allow you to get to the next activity. So we've really tried to make sure that nobody's going to be late for any activities or entertainment of an evening. All right, so where are we eating? For those that have been to Kangaree before, we're in the same dining hall as we were last time. So we will be taking up that whole room on the left, where you can see where entrance and exit is marked. The big difference from this time is that we're flowing traffic the opposite way to what we've done in the past. So you will be entering the dining hall from the south end. That's the bottom of this picture here. There's a whole lot of reasons we've done that, but it should make life a bit easier. So when you come at mealtime, please make sure everyone has already been to the toilet and washed their hands. And then you'll come to the dining hall, and down the south end there, you can see we've got a hand washing station. So we'll be asking everyone to wash their hands again with soap and water, and also we'll be providing sanitizer there. Then there's also a drink station where there'll be barrels of cordial and also some barrels of water as well for anyone that wants water. Everyone will have been given a drink bottle, so please make sure you bring those drink bottles with you. Each of the tables within the dining hall will be numbered, and that number is your unit number, and they are in order, and we will be seating people in order. So we do ask that you bear with us. We will be starting with seating unit 1 and then unit 2 and so on. And that's really for traffic flow, really, to make sure that we don't have people crossing over each other, and we're managing that flow of people. It's more than 2,500 people, so we've got to be quite particular in how we manage the flow of traffic. So you will have numbers on the table, and it will be the same table each time. So once you know where your table is for that first meal, it'll be really easy for you to go back and find that table again. Now also at the snacks area, which you'll see just to the sort of the northeast corner of the building, there will be fruit available there 24/7. So if you ever have a Joey Scout that's a bit hungry, or an adult that's a bit hungry, please go to that fruit station and feel free to pick up as much fruit as you need. There will be plenty there. All right, so I thought we'd have a quick look at the menu. Many of you may have already looked at this on the website, so I won't go through it in massive detail. But what I do really want to highlight is that the menu is available on the website, so do please look at it and become familiar with it. Something of note is that lunch on the first day is bring your own. So please make sure that all your Joey Scouts, adult helpers and leaders know that they need to bring their own lunch on that first day. We will have the fruit available, as I mentioned, for a snack, but if they're wanting any other sort of afternoon tea snack, they need to bring that as well. There will be time for you to find a patch of grass and have your picnic lunch then. So dinner on the first night is hamburgers. Now with all of our meals, the food comes separate. So you're able to assemble and help assemble for the Joey Scouts what they do and don't want. So if someone doesn't want tomato, that's fine. Just don't put tomato in their hamburger. Breakfast the next day, we're having cereal and milk, and you're able to make toast as well if you like, and then we'll have pancakes. So then for the next day, we've got hot dogs for lunch, and then for dinner, we've got a roast potato with bolognese and various toppings. And then breakfast the next day is croissants, and then finally, before we go, we'll be having pre-made sandwiches on the Sunday. So if anyone was at Vic Jam, we ran a really successful lunch mart, and so we'll be putting in place the same method for Kangaree, where we're buying in sandwiches, kind of like what you can buy at a service station. We're trying to make sure there's lots of Joey-friendly flavours in there, and units will come and collect their sandwiches, and then it's up to you as a unit leader to decide when and how you have those. Do you find a spot, a patch on the grass and have those before you catch the bus, or is your bus leaving early and you might have them on the bus? That's up to you to work out for your unit. What you'll also notice in this menu here is there's all the diets across the top, and that lists all the substitute items that we're providing for each of the given different diets. So please make sure you're aware of what those substitute products are so that you can make sure people are having the foods that they need. All right, so when arriving at the dining hall, there's a few key things that we need your help with. We need for you to please make sure that your whole Kangaree unit is together. And just as a reminder, that's your whole Kangaree unit, not just your home unit. So lots of home units have been joined together to form a Kangaree unit, and we need you to be looking after that whole Kangaree unit and making sure that whole Kangaree unit is there together for mealtime. Before lining up, please make sure everyone's been to the toilet and washed their hands, and then we'll ask you to wash and sanitize again as you come into the dining hall. You can never be too careful. Everyone, as I mentioned before, everyone will be getting a drink bottle, but as a Kangaree unit leader, it would be a good idea for you to make sure that you have some spares, just in case someone loses one or breaks one or leaves it on the bus or something like that. Please do, as a Kangaree unit leader, please do have some spares. Those drink bottles is how they'll be drinking for the whole 3 days. There are no cups being provided. So it really is imperative that everyone has their own drink bottle. And please make sure those drink bottles are filled before entering the dining room. What we don't want is people coming into the dining room, being seated, and then having to leave to go and fill drink bottles. So please make sure that's done before coming in. And also you'll be shown to your table when it's ready. As I mentioned before, it's really important that we're seating those tables in order. So someone will come, one of our wonderful catering team will come and collect you from the entrance as you're ready to be seated. All right, so then during the mealtime, we ask for you to remain seated as much as possible. If someone needs to go in and ask for help or get some help from one of the catering team, that's totally fine. But as much as possible, we really want people to remain seated. It's a huge amount of people in a large hall, and we need to make sure we've got really clear access to exits and aisles in case there's any reason that we need to evacuate. So please do stay seated at the table. There'll be many things on your table when you first arrive. There'll be condiments, cold foods, salad items, plates, serving utensils, knives, forks, all that sort of stuff will be there before you arrive. Then as you're seated, the hot food will be delivered to you. That's to make sure that we're being as food safe as possible and it's out of the ovens for as little time as possible. So then we need yourselves and your assistant leaders to dish out the food to the unit. By all means, if you think your Joey Scouts are up to it, it might be a great opportunity for them to start learning and helping with serving. But we do ask that the leaders please closely supervise and ensure that that serving is done efficiently and in a food safe way. Then when everyone has finished eating, what we ask you to do is there's basically 3 things. Firstly, we need for you to scrape all the organic matter into FOGO bins. So FOGO bins, many of you probably have them at home. They're provided by your council, a little tub with a green liner. We're recycling all the organic matter, so please scrape all the food waste into that bin, and then we'll empty those bins for you before the next meal. It's really, really important that you can't put any rubbish or foil or glad wrap or anything like that in those bins, because if we contaminate the organic waste, then all of our organic waste will actually end up going to landfill rather than being turned into fertilizer. So please do be really careful about what you put in those FOGO bins. And there's a little sticker on the lid to tell you what can and can't go in. So then all the non-organic rubbish, so there'll be foil, glad wrap, empty packets, that sort of stuff. There'll be garbage bins dotted throughout the hall for you to pop all that stuff into. And then we ask that you stack up the plates after they've been really clearly scraped, like they need to be scraped quite well, please. Stack them up into one of the trays. All your food will be arriving in big gastronome trays. Stack up all the plates and cutlery into a couple of them and have a couple of your leaders please carry those to the dishwashing unit. And then we have a really fancy dishwashing unit where we will be washing all of the dishes and sanitizing them ready for the next meal. So you guys don't need to do any of the dishwashing. But we do need your help with scraping the items really well, please. Then also on your way out of the hall, up in that northeast corner, and you'll be able to collect your snacks and or desserts, depending on the meal. Those snacks, which might be muesli bars or muffins or something, and fruit, please collect them on your way out. If you want to collect them for your whole unit in one go, that's fine. But if you would like the kids to select them themselves, that's also fine. Up to you to manage that. We do need to flow the traffic through that snacks area relatively quickly. So it might be easier to send one leader to go and collect them on behalf of all your unit. And if that's the way that you'd like to do it, please make sure you've got some kind of bag or something to put them in so that you can easily carry them. All right, how will mod diets work? As I sort of mentioned before, a lot of mod diets can actually be handled at the table. There's no need to get any specific food. If, for example, someone doesn't have tomato, just don't put it in their burger. If, for example, someone can't have onion because they're low fructose, then please don't put onion in their hot dog. So most of that you can handle completely with the ingredients because they're all separate at the table. You can handle that at the table yourselves. There will also be a report on your table, which will highlight exactly what the substitute items are for which diets. So you will know exactly who's in your unit and who are vegan and who are celiac. And this report will help you identify what items you need to give different to those people with those modified diets. Another thing we're doing different to last Kangaree is we're actually going to bring the modified diets food to you. This is partly because we have so many more people in the dining hall this time. We really can't have people standing up and moving and walking around the dining hall. So we don't need you to come and collect those mod diets items. We'll be bringing them to you. They'll come in a plastic tub and they'll be separately Ziploc bagged. So if there's, say, for example, gluten-free hamburger buns, they'll be in sealed packaging, put in one of these tubs, and that will be brought to your table. And all the hot products will come in foil containers with lids where we'll write the unit number on them. So all that food will come to you. If there's any problems though, or if you're missing something, or if there's not enough of something, or if something falls on the ground, anything like that, please do ask us for help. We do have some spares and we really want to make sure everyone's well fed. So please don't suffer in silence. Come and tell us if there's an issue. You'll be able to identify the catering team members by a purple apron that they'll be wearing. So please ask them for any help you need. As with the standard menu, we also need the Kangaree unit leaders to be helping with the distribution of the modified diets food. And that has some inherent risk in it that we need you to be really aware of. There's a high risk of cross-contamination of items. Some people, many actually, who are coming are anaphylactic to various food items. So you need to be hyper aware of that and know exactly who has what allergies and to ensure there is no cross-contamination of food products at the table. Leaders need to wash and sanitize their hands before touching any of the food service utensils. So we will have tongs, forks, spoons, those sorts of things available at the table. Please make sure you're following excellent food hygiene when using those, and limit the number of people who are doing the serving too, especially with modified diets. Ideally, if you have someone in your team, one of your assistant leaders, who is well versed with modified diets, it would be a great job for them to be in control of handing out those modified diets foods during the meal. We'll also provide gloves at the table as well so that you can use gloves. All right, just a couple of specific things that you might come across. You might come across ASD or fussy eaters. We really want to make sure that everyone is feeling incredibly included at Kangaree. So Kangaree is not a time to deny people their food requests or for there to be any commentary or anything like that. We really want to be incredibly inclusive and make sure that we're helping people get the food that they need. What with some of these issues, you'll find there might be things where children can have or want to have food separated on the plate, not mixed together. All the food will be coming to you separated, so that's absolutely something that you can do to help your Joey Scouts if they don't want certain food items touching, or if they want to eat something first and then get a second helping of a different food item. You can absolutely facilitate at that table, and we request your help in doing that, please. If we can keep meal times as happy and friendly and fun for everyone as possible, that will make sure that our Joey Scouts are having a really fabulous time. So please do help with any of those food needs. Another thing that we recommend is encourage the parents of any of your youth who have some of these food concerns. Encourage the parents to please download the menu and talk with their Joey Scouts about it. We find that a lot of Joey Scouts will respond really well when they've been warned or been told and they're knowing what to expect. That can help greatly. So please do ask parents to talk through those food things with them before they come to Kangaree. Sometimes there will be things that they don't want to eat, and that's okay. Please don't force anyone to eat things that they don't want to eat, but do help identify things that they can eat. Try and keep it really a positive experience and help them work out what they do want to eat. There will always be things on offer like bread or sandwich fillings or things like that. So if you're struggling with someone eating the meal that's provided, do please talk to one of the catering team, and they will be able to help you identify something that the Joey Scouts will eat. And at the end of the day, it is only a 2-night camp. So if they eat a Vegemite sandwich for 3 meals a day for over 2 nights, it's going to be okay. All right. So let's just make sure that we find something that they will eat rather than trying to force them to eat what's at the table. Hypersensitivity is another thing that you might come across. The dining hall is really, really big and it's quite chaotic. Another reason why we're asking people to stay seated as much as they can. So if someone is finding that environment too overwhelming, please don't feel like they need to stay there. If they're finding it overwhelming, it's best to remove them and to help them make sure that they're having a good experience. There are picnic tables just outside the dining room, and you're certainly welcome to have a leader escort Joeys, however many you may or may not have. Take them to those picnic tables outside, and then another leader can bring the food to you so that you can sit in a slightly more quiet environment outside at those picnic tables. All right, now the main bit of what we really need your help with. I've talked a lot during this about various things that we need you to do at stages while we're at Kangaree. But one of the really big things we need your help with is the prep work. So we've done countless hours of work in analysing everyone's modified diets and making sure that we have appropriate substitutes for everyone so that nobody has to go hungry. But we really need your help to make sure that that's all in order. So you will have received login details to get into the application system. So the screenshot you'll see there for mine is a little bit different to what you'll see when you log in. But there's a section there called report. And then if you go down to the bottom item, which is mod diet report for Kangaree unit leaders, we really need you to download that report, print a few copies of it, study it, learn it, share it with some of your other assistant Kangaree unit leaders so that you have some additional backup. Make sure you have a copy of it when you come to Kangaree. But also we really need you to do some prep work before Kangaree. So make sure that you know the children that have certain modified diet needs, what they are, what their allergies are, what their reactions are, how they're treated. Make sure you know all of that information. Talk with families, talk with the parents and carers of children that have particular modified diet needs to really make sure that you understand what they need, what they can and what they can't have. At the end of the day, we're making sure that the right product is there for you, but you guys will be supervising putting the food on the plate for the Joey Scouts. So it's really imperative that you understand who's in your unit and the mod diet needs that they have. And if you have any questions in the lead up or you're not sure how to deal with some of these modified diets, please contact us at any time at catering@kangaree.com.au. We're more than happy to talk through any of these things with you. What you'll also start to see is over the next couple of days, we will be emailing all people who have a modified diet need, and we will be carbon copying you as their unit leader into that email. So you have complete transparency in conversations that we're having with families to make sure that we have the right modified diet products there for them. So do please engage in that conversation and follow those emails and get involved and talk with the parents as well. Alrighty, that's most of what I had to go through, but are there questions?
Just beforehand, there's been some questions in the chat. If you want to just have a quick look at that, I just wanted to quickly highlight a few things why Jess is just looking at your questions. The first one that Jess has mentioned a few times, and this is really important, is you need to communicate with us. Yes, we say it's a 2-night event, but we don't, if something's not happening and we don't know about it, there's nothing we can do. So you need to communicate with us. And this is for all of our leaders. So make sure all your leaders know this as well. So please communicate with us. We can't say that enough. If we don't know something's happening, nothing we can do. About the drink bottles, please tell your leaders to bring some Sharpies, and even down to if you have a youth member that doesn't have a jacket on, that has a jacket on and you've already picked it up once and asked whose it is, quickly write their name on it so you can stop having to ask. But also to put their names on their drink bottles. Also, maybe put your unit number on it as well, because that way, if we find a drink bottle lying around, it makes it a lot quicker for us to be able to return it to them. In regards to what is a unit, I'm really sorry, I should have mentioned this at the start. A Kangaree unit, that is, yes, you'll have your bus, and that will be signing people onto the bus, and Jackie will talk more about that very shortly. But once you actually get to the site, if someone is on an activity, they'll go off into their activity teams. Your unit then will be the people that follow you around through activities and dinings. One thing that you can start to think about in the next couple of weeks that Jess has mentioned, why not get your youth members to look at some programs in the next week or so to talk about an SIA, so creating a better world. Why are we doing our food into the compost bins? What's important about that? Why are we using and washing all of our plates and knives and forks rather than using disposable ones? Let's get our youth involved to understand, so when they get to Kangaree, that they actually have that. So that's part of that. We could look at an SIA that you could use part of Kangaree and then move forward for as well. The other thing about that is you might want to talk with your Joey Scouts about allergies, so that if someone does have an allergy and they're having something different, so they understand as well. Our kids have a lot of questions, and this is the remarkable age about Joey Scouts. Bring them into the conversations as much as possible and as much that is applicable to our age group. But start to put these into your program. If you put these into your programs in the next couple of weeks and start the conversation, that way our youth members are going to know our youth members are really capable of doing things like scraping food into bins. So have the conversation with them. Sorry, Jess, back over to you.
Thanks, James. That was awesome. So yeah, just running through some of the questions. Absolutely, as James said, please bring a marker pen so that you can write names on anything and everything where they should be. Hundreds and thousands for sandwiches, great idea. I'll take that on advisement and make sure we have a couple of jars available if needed. So is there an ingredients list available? It's nearly finalised. We just had to finalise a couple of product swaps that we had to do late yesterday, but that ingredients list, anyone who's done a major event recently will have seen the ingredients lists that we post on the website. It's about a 20-page PDF document that lists every single product on site and the manufacturer's ingredients and allergy warnings for those items. That will be going online in the next couple of days, and it will also be linked in the emails that we send to individual families about modified diets. So yes, that will absolutely be available very soon. So spare bottles, I think we talked about that. We won't be having spare bottles for you. Please make sure you have some spare bottles ready in case they're needed. They could be old drink bottles from your Tupperware drawer that you want to get rid of, or they could be some water bottles from the supermarket. But yeah, please do bring some spares with you. Very good question about children with allergies and sitting next to other people who may have the allergen or be eating the allergen. That's a really good point. And this is where it's really imperative for you to get to know exactly who's in your Kangaree unit and what their allergies are. It will largely depend on the severity of the allergy. Some people can't be within several meters of a particular allergen. So that's absolutely something you need to be aware of. If there is someone like that in your unit, let's talk and have a further conversation about exactly how we'll manage that. But more generally, it's okay. Most allergens are okay as long as the Joey Scouts aren't sharing their food. So again, this is something to be talking with them about. Once food is on their plate, it's their food, and they're not to be sharing with their mates as much as they might want to, but we really don't want them doing that. Sorry, also, I don't think I mentioned during the presentation, it probably goes without saying, all Scout events are nut-free events. So there will be no nuts on site. So if nut allergy is the only allergy that an individual has, then rest assured there will be no nuts on site. However, you do still need to be aware of some people who have hypersensitive allergies, where some food items may contain traces of, because they're made in the same facility as a product that may contain nuts. So you need to understand from those individuals, are the may contain traces of, is that okay for them or not okay for them? So that's something that you need to be quite aware of. Food handling gloves, yes, they'll be latex free, no worries about that. The picnic tables outside, a question about 2 Up, that's a really great question. There will be a number of people there. It's a very open area. It's actually quite a thoroughfare, so there's a lot of people moving in and around and through that area. So I don't think that will be a concern, but of course, as always, be aware of your situation and your surroundings. And if you find that, you are in a situation where there aren't lots of people around, then please absolutely make sure you're always following the 2 Up. And yeah, great idea there, James, about getting a buddy. That's a great idea. Okay. Difference between unit number and troop number. I think that's the same thing. And I think
yes, Kangaree it is.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
I think that let me just have a quick look to see if there's any other questions. Okay, there was a question about the timetable with purple being last and delays happening. Look, I'm quite confident that that won't be an issue this time. Food certainly will be ready on time. There's no concerns there. The only concern is making sure that we get people seated in the dining hall on time. So as long as everyone arrives at their allocated time, there will be no issues. And we've also made sure there's a 15-minute gap before the activity. So you've got an hour and 15 to get there. Yeah, I know my cat wants to get out, but he'll cope.
Sorry, can I just say, Narelle's just raised a point about Unit North 3, yellow. So your yellow is your colour rotation. Your Troop 6 would be your Kangaree unit when you're on site. The North 3 is purely to help us identify exactly what bus you are on if we need to find out what's happened with the bus somehow. So the Unit North 3 is more for us, less for you. Once you get on site, it will be you are in the yellow rotation group and you are Troop 6. Sorry, Jess.
Oh, good. Good question about cordial and water. Absolutely, there will be both. We really strongly recommend that Kangaree isn't a time when you need to say no sugar, unless they can't have sugar. But a little bit of sugar in some cordial a couple of times a day is perfectly fine for Joey Scouts. They will be running around and burning off that sugar. So please don't be too concerned about that. But yes, absolutely, there will be water available as well. There should be no need to ask Joey Scouts to bring their own drink bottle as well as the one they get from Kangaree. The one they get from Kangaree should be sufficient, as long as you as a Kangaree unit leader have a few spares for just in case. Let me just have another quick look. Okay, I think that's it, unless there's any other questions. I think I've covered it all.
No,
Great.
awesome.
All right, thanks everyone. And as I mentioned, if you do think of any other questions, please email catering@kangaree.com.au and someone in the team will absolutely make sure we help you out. And now I'll let my cat out.
Okay, so I think it's me now. All right, so my name's Janice. I'm from the health team. So our role is to support you basically in providing basic care for your Joey Scouts. The simplest way to look at this from a health and welfare perspective is that you would plan this event the same way that you would a unit camp. In other words, your level of care and responsibilities are pretty much the same as what you do in an ordinary camp. So you will be providing their basic care, you'll be looking after their pre-existing conditions, you'll be managing the medication. If you need help with this, or if you need to escalate the care, you can escalate it to the first aid post. If you have a look on the little picture that I've put in there, we're down the bottom of what used to be the admin building. We will also have roaming first aiders moving around during the actual activities. Anyone in a green vest with a first aid cross on it is part of our team. All units should have your own unit patrol or first aid kit. I'm not going to talk too much about all the specifics of looking after your units because most of you are experienced and there's quite a lot of information in the actual resource or info book that we've put out. Just keep checking that regularly because we're updating it as more questions and information comes through. Okay. So what I really want to talk about is a few of the other things. So medication. You will have noticed that this event, we are using Operoo as our primary source of information for all things medical. So we took a lot of that information out of the application system and we're now expecting that it'll be in Operoo. And this is so we're not doubling up everywhere. So all medications need to be documented in Operoo. They should be in their original packaging or in a Webster type pack. Prescription medication needs to have the pharmacist label on it and it needs to have a label in the participant's name. Don't laugh, I have seen this before where they've sent mum or dad's medication. All over-the-counter medications need to have the participant's name written on it, you know, in a Sharpie pen or something like that. It needs to all be in a Ziploc bag with the name and the unit number on the outside, and we would expect that they would hand that to you as they're getting on the bus. You need to safely store all the medication out of reach from the youth members. And if you need refrigeration, we've got fridges up in the first aid post, so you can bring that medication up to us there. Emergency medications such as adrenaline and auto ejectors, puffers and stuff like that should accompany the youth. Okay, so when you're assisting with medication, it must be authorised by the family in Operoo. If you don't have the details and the instructions in Operoo, then you shouldn't be giving it. As first aiders and leaders, we're not authorised to dispense medication. We're only assisting. And this includes things like occasional use pain relief like Panadol or antihistamines. They should all be documented in the system. So encourage your families to provide occasional use medication, your Panadol or their antihistamine. By encouraging them to provide it to you, that means that you know that that's okay for them. It should be checked with another adult or responsible person. You shouldn't be dispensing, oh, sorry, not dispensing. You shouldn't be helping with this medication without someone else checking it with you. You need to make sure that it hasn't been expired and that you're documenting it somewhere. We'll put out some medication charts and some first aid sort of chart things that you can be using. We'll email them out. So when we look at what we call the 5 rights when you're giving out medication, you want to be checking that you've got the right individual each time. So that's a matter of checking that, you know, the photo in Operoo looks the same as the person that you're giving it to, particularly if you don't know the person, that maybe even you ask them, you know, can you tell me what your name is? You need to make sure that the right medication. So again, that it matches what has been written in Operu, matches the medication that you've got in your hand. You want to make sure that the dosage is right and that you're giving it the right way, whether you're giving it as a tablet, whether it's supposed to be a puffer. You know, some of the kids that we've got coming are even having injections. And you need to make sure that it's the right time. And again, that is the information that you want the parents to be putting into Operu for you, that what time the medication should be taken. So I guess what I'm saying is that these 5 rights really inform or give you an idea of how much detail we want in Operu. Okay, so just, and we're asking you as the unit leader or someone that you delegate it to be checking through all the profiles of the members of your unit. We don't have time to go through 2,700 profiles. So we're asking you to take responsibility for this and make sure that you have all the information. You're going to be dealing with this mainly. All right, so they need to have a current photo. It needs to be passport size and it needs to be head and shoulders. We don't want the cat, we don't want group shots, we don't want black squares, all sorts of ridiculous things that I've seen. You need to be able to identify the person from that photo. It should provide details of their current state of health. So pre-existing conditions, their current illness, maybe they've had COVID in the last 4 weeks, we want that documented because that means that we don't have to test them again. Have they had a recent cold or a flu? Did they break their legs 2 weeks ago and they're now in a plaster cast? How does the parent want you to look after that? That should be documented in the system. What medical aids are they bringing with them? Are they bringing an insulin pump? Do they have, well, an example of an adult, do they have a pacemaker? Hearing aids, any of that sort of stuff. They might be bringing a wheelchair. We want to have the copies of their emergency action plans and care plans in there. So if they're an asthmatic, you would expect to see one of the asthma care plans in there. If they're anaphylactic or have allergies, you expect to see an allergy care plan in there. For some of the more behavioural or welfare type issues, you would expect to see a care plan in there or about how the parent deals with that or things that can help. It doesn't have to be a formal care plan. It could be one the parent has written up.
Janice, do you need to click through some? Yeah, cool, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, did I not give you that? All right. So, this is an example then of what we need to be looking at. Photos are part of the identification process. So when we're, particularly when they're coming into first aid, we want to make sure that we've identified the person by their correct name, by their correct identification number, so that being their Scout ID, their correct date of birth, and that the photo matches the person. That's how we make sure that we have the right person, that we're doing the right thing. A thing to note is with the Joey Scouts, is that there really needs to be a photo that's probably less than 12 months old because they're changing frequently. So we have a lot of photos in the system that, are 2-3 years old. We even have some adults in the system that still have their youth photos in there. So we want those updated. It's a passport size. Okay, so this is some examples for you just to give you some ideas of how that information should be put into the system. I'm going to send out some resources to you all so that you will have this with some examples of someone that's perhaps a diabetic, someone that's asthma, that sort of stuff, so that you can see what you need to do. You can see in here diabetes, they're diabetes type 1, they have an insulin pump and they're bringing a continuous glucose monitor with them. And the detail is just basically see the attached action plan and the camp action plan. In medication, they're getting their insulin via a pump, and they're also bringing some glucagon with them for hypoglycemia. And again, that's in their plan, that's all the details there. We want another example here, bedwetting. We've got an occasional bedwetter, just avoid drinks at night and encourage some toileting before bed. They'll bring the supplies for you. All right. So it's pretty simple. A thing to probably highlight in here is that the risk levels are really about the risk that the condition presents to the person's health or quality of life well-being. So it's not for example, the risk of how often it might occur, unless of course that's affecting their life or well-being, but it's more about highlighting what it's really risky. So for example, anaphylaxis or type 1 diabetes, I would consider that a high risk because they're potentially life-threatening. An occasional or well-managed asthma, it could be considered low risk. It's unlikely to occur or be a concern to the participant's health. A dietary requirement, for example, of say they can't have any pork products for religious reasons, would probably be a medium risk. It's important to the person's well-being, but it's generally easy to manage, and it's certainly not going to be life-threatening. I would certainly expect that if anyone's got a high risk indicated in the system, that there would be an attached action plan for that condition. Adults may wish just to put a self-written action plan in about how they might want us to assist with the incident could occur. Youth members have generally got an action plan that they're using at school for the asthma or the anaphylaxis. They can attach that, but adults don't. For conditions such as seizures, I would expect to see that the family has documented when that last occurred. So for some seizures, they may not have had one for 2 or 3 years, but it'll still be in the system, and it's good information for us to see when that last occurred. Anyone that's got asthma, we need to know whether they've been hospitalised within the last 12 months, because again, that gives us information of how acute that asthma is. We need to also make sure that anyone that's, haven't had asthma for a while still brings their reliever medication to camp. It's not unusual for some of these kids to go, or families, he hasn't had anything for 2 or 3 years and not pack it. And then it can flare up at camp and we need to deal with it. For youth members, complete and accurate documentation is required. For adults, obviously we can't enforce that. We would encourage them highly to do it, but they're going to manage that risk themselves. They need to decide for themselves how much and what information they're going to provide. At the very least, with an adult, I'm going to expect to see a current profile with a photo and emergency contact information. So just a couple of things about COVID, and we're just going to touch on this. We will be recommending that everyone has a RAT test 24 hours prior to the event. There'll be some emails going out about that. We would recommend that you don't put more than 4 or 6 joeys in a tent. And this is just because, if we have an exposure in that tent, that's a lot more people that we have to deal with. Adults are certainly encouraged to be in single tents. The tent pavilion mates will be considered to be a close contact. So if we get someone that becomes positive during the event, anyone that's in the same tent with them or anyone that's been sleeping in close proximity to them, they will be considered to be household contacts. So what that currently means with the current health guidelines is that they will be required to wear a mask indoor if they're over 8 years of age, and they will need to perform daily RAT tests on days 2 to 7 post-exposure. We'll be informing the families of any of these. If a family or participant informs you about a pre-event exposure, so maybe they've been to a party before Kangaree and someone's turned up positive there, the party was more than 4 hours long, they're all in the room together, or someone in the household has become positive, then we need you to report that to the EMC, the Emergency Management Centre, and we'll sort out from there what we need to do. So just a couple of final points. Bus sickness or motion sickness, you're going to get some of this. So have some sick bags on the bus. Seat everyone up the front if you can. And if they've got air vents, turn them on over the kids, and that'll help. Another little final point, there's a lot about bedwetting in the resource manual, so I'm not going to go into this in great detail, but just to remind you that you'll need extra supplies for them. We don't have laundering on site, so you need extra sleeping bags, you'll need extra, bedding. And recommend that they bring pull-ups for nighttime. And just please remind any of these kids that are using pull-ups that they aren't flushable. They can't put them down the toilet. I think we've certainly had some events where the toilets have all plugged up and we've had to get the plumbers in on site. So we all want to avoid that. For yourself, you're responsible for looking after yourself. Remember, think about fatigue. They're long days. There's hills, there's mud. You're going to be standing a lot. You're going to be walking a lot. Comfortable shoes, and I love compression socks. Being a nurse, I wear them all the time and they help my legs and I'm not as tired. Start walking now. Park that car a little bit further away. Take a little bit more walking. Maybe a couple of walks around the block. We've all been coming out of winter and I know certainly myself, I've been a lot more sedentary than I normally am. Bring a deck chair, a keep mug for yourself, bring comfortable bedding. I always advise my leaders on these sort of camps. Your stuff's coming on the trailer. You might be setting some of it up, away from the joeys. You certainly are. So bring that four-wheel drive mat. It doesn't matter. Share the night duties. So someone should be on call for the night. You don't all need to be awake or keeping your ear out overnight. Just share it around, create a bit of a roster, and everyone else put your earplugs in and try and sleep. And don't forget your own medication. Bring a pill box, that certainly helps. Keep it out of reach of your youth members. And if you have any restricted medication like endone or pain patches and stuff like that, we would advise you that you're using a small locked box or bag. And just a final point, laugh, it's okay. In fact, it's really vital too. Keep your sense of humour. I put my my email up there. If you've got any general comments, concerns or anything that you want to talk to me about, by all means email me. If it's anything about a specific child, I would ask that you put it through the info@Kangaree email address. That way we're tracking that information. And now I'm going to hand over to Chris.
Thanks, Janice. So just mindful of everybody's time. I think a lot of the questions might be best suited in like an FAQ later. Some of them will be able to wait. So I'm just going to touch on the wellbeing side and also talk a little bit more about some of the other little bits that are around it. You'll notice through both Jess's and Janice's, there's a big focus on Operu. Like Janice said, we're going to be giving you some more resources to make sure that you know how to use Operu and you can inform and help the parents use Operu, because that's the single point of truth. We want it to be awesome. There's also a huge focus on liaising with the parents of the youth, especially for the ones you don't know. It's even harder, but you just have the chats early. It's going to make it nice and easy. I realize I'm jumping through this, but as I said, mindful of time. So there'll be a wellbeing response. I want to answer one of the earlier questions. There'll be a wellbeing team present during meal times to help with those eaters and diners that just need a bit of space. So they'll also be there to support you so that you don't lose the needed number of leaders you've got to do your catering. Because like Jess said, that's a really key time for adults. So we'll also help you there. So don't worry about that. As the unit leaders, we expect you to deal and manage the behaviors and the sort of the moods and whatever of the kids to what you would normally expect on a unit night or a camp away. When you can't manage that, that's when the people in wellbeing team gets involved. And on Janice's little slide, there was the nice red cross. That's where we live as well. Come and get us, we'll help you out. And so we're there to support you, but you guys are going to be able to do the best work where you are, because you'll know them better. You'll have made the connections. You'll be, like I said in the info book, they're protective factors. So really, you guys are doing the good work and employ you to make you look good. If you're going through your Operu when the time.
Chris, I'm really sorry, Chris. I think you might be cutting in and out.
Person is, and you see some things that full people dealing with. Maybe there's the management. Rude. What was the last bit you heard from Ikara?
It was
Chris,
a bit hard to tell because you counteract yourself. So if you want to talk that last sentence again, I think.
God, short-term memory problems are a problem. We're here to support you. We're here to make you look better. So you guys are the ones that are going to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting because you know them best. We're here to make you look better. So reach out. Your best bet, like Janice said, info@kangaree.com.au. and then that will make sure that it gets to where it needs to go, and we'll be able to support it. The other fun bit is that we are probably one of the most inclusive Joey events that we've ever had. The levels of people with additional needs, be they mobility or accessibility, is probably one of the best we've seen, which has been fantastic. If you're looking at your Operoo or you've met your group and you're like, oh, how am I going to help support them and get them involved? If you've managed it and the parents have managed it, amazing. If not, if you go through to that info thing, our inclusion person, Wombat, he can help you out with that. Like I said, we're here to make it easier for everybody. Last couple of points. Phone home. If you've got a young person that is struggling, old campaigners would probably tell you that calling home is not the best option. And that is wisdom that has held true for a long, long time. And it's probably not the best. Your best option is potentially a redirection. We would not encourage it. And more so, we wouldn't actively want you doing it, making phone calls in the lines. So if the struggles are getting that real, that's where the people and wellbeing team can get involved. So that's come and see us before you make any of those sorts of decisions. And the last bit to do with emergency services and communication. If something goes wrong and someone breaks something, or there's some behaviors that are criminal or whatever, it's not your job to make those phone calls, and we would actually actively encourage you not. Bring them straight to us, because that's the job of our EMC. The EMC is hooked into all the different networks and arrangements so that we can liaise with the police scouters and all that sort of stuff. So if you see something that is going wrong or is a near miss, get in contact with even like the first aid team or an activity team, and they'll be able to get in contact with the EMC, and then we can respond there. The last two bits, just as a reminder, you should all have on your phone the child safe number, which is in all the documentation ever, but 1-800-870-772, useful number to have just as a life option, and the emergency line. Thank you, Cara. The emergency line as well, 8543-9877. During the Kangaree event, chances are the people you call on that number will already be at the event. The child safe line, the top one, is for children that are at harm or at risk of harm. And we're not talking like they've fallen and hurt themselves. We're talking sort of more the child safety element. And the emergency, maybe something's happened and you can't see someone to alert. Maybe a tree has fallen or something. We can fix all that up. Cool. If you do have questions, it might be best we'll do as an FAQ later, because that might be a bit of a broader one. Cara, I've not been tracking. Are there any pressing ones that we need an answer to just this second?
No, we will come back to them at the end.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry I spoke so fast, but I'm just trying to keep us up to time. I am going to hand over to Jackie, I believe.
Thanks, Chris. All right, so I'm from the administration team, and there's a few things that we've got to communicate with you. So you will have found out yesterday who is in your unit. There may be some issues with a person missing from your unit, and that could be partly to do with their application status. There could also be some other little small reasons as to why. If you've got a concern, just email info@kangaree.com.au and we will address the issues as quickly as we can for you. There are several other things that you need to be aware of. The unit number is a number. The unit name is the name. That name tells me what the unit is made up of. And the whole purpose of that is so that instead of going your unit 1 and I've got to spend hours trying to find out who's in the unit, I've got an idea of what that unit is made up of. So do others throughout the whole event. So that number is the same number you're going to have even if you're on the bus. We are keeping it the same. Unlike last Kangaree where we had one number for the bus and one number for your unit, it is the same number all the way through. So we don't need to be too confused. There's a process about what's going to happen when you come on site with your unit. The buses will arrive and there'll be someone from the admin team and welfare team that will meet you, which will have your wristbands and your merchandise to give you. We will be requiring you to tell us who has not caught the bus after you've been to the last bus stop. We'll be sending you a mobile number that we're going to ask you to text us so that we can follow up and find out why they haven't caught the bus and what arrangements they've made instead. Once the bus has arrived, if you're camping in the pavilion, the bus stop will stop at the pavilion for the gear to be removed. Most buses are either purely camping or purely pavilion, but there are a few that have a bit of both. If you have both camping and pavilion in your bus, we are asking that you tag the bags for the pavilion with a red ribbon, so it makes it easier for us to be able to take them from under the bus at the pavilion stop. All right. If you're camping, your gear will be dropped off at the top of the camping site and you'll be able to walk your gear down the hill instead of up the hill. Make sure that you have your lunch before activities. One of the things that we're going to get you to do once you get off the bus is to start setting up your gear. Then once you've had lunch, make sure you know where to go for meals. So go for a wander around the site to where you can go for meals. Know where the facilities are, because they're always the thing you've got to find first, and they're normally the furthest thing away. And also to be aware where admin is, first aid and welfare. And just to make you aware, admin this year is not in the building we've always been. We are now in the conference centre. If you have time before the rotation, Wombat Hollow will be open for you to take Joey Scouts to with leaders. You won't be able to take your Joey Scouts and leave them and then go back and set your gear up. You will need to leave leaders with them. With regards to transport, there's just a few things at the moment. We will be using the Little Red bus system as used for Vic Jam, Kangaree and previous Kangarees and Jamboree. Where possible, we are trying to use pickup locations we have used before. There will be no toilets on buses, but you will be able to talk to the bus driver and arrange to stop if needed. Just keep the breaks to a few and not every 5 minutes. Otherwise, the delay to Kangaree will be longer. When packing the bus, if you can separate, if you've got pavilion and tent people in the same bus, the gear at one end and the other gear at the other end, that would make it so much easier. Otherwise, the bus won't be able to stop at the pavilion to drop the gear off. It'll all have to be unloaded at the camping location, and then you'll need to walk all that gear back. So please make sure you do pack that properly. I know I've received a few emails this morning from people saying that they've been allocated or not allocated to units. We are trying to sort through some of those issues as we speak. If you've got any questions or queries about it, the admin team answer the questions normally within 24 hours, sometimes even a little bit quicker than that. We'll see how we go. If you've got any questions, just contact us. That's it for me. I'll hand you back to James.
Wonderful. All right. I'm just going to reshare my screen. All right, Jackie went a little bit shorter than I thought she was. Oh, yes. Jess, do you want to just quickly pop in? Sorry, Jess wanted to briefly mention something. I'll stop.
There was just...
Oh, yeah, no, go.
Thanks, James. There was just two things I forgot to mention. One was we will have a coffee cart on site. So one of our wonderful Rover units is running a coffee station as a fundraiser. So do please bring a Keep cup with you, and you'll be able to have a lovely barista coffee. Highly recommend.
Do you want to say it's not the same Rover crew as last time? It's not the same Rover crew that was at Kangaree. It's the one that was at Kangaree.
Yes. But they're Rovers, great to support them, and they'll be great to keep you caffeinated. And then the second thing I wanted to mention is with any children that have any sensory concerns, if they use sensory headphones or anything like that for school assemblies, encourage them to bring those too. So that might be a good thing to find out. How do those children with sensory concerns, what measures or what things do they have in place to help with school assemblies or things like that, and bring that to Kangaree too. Thank you, James.
No stress.
And yes, there'll be tea.
There will be tea. Just remember, catering is in a big shed, so the sound does reverberate a lot. So think of anything that can support those kids to enjoy their experience. Let's see what we can do. All right, let me just share my screen. We're almost there, and I do thank you so much for all of your time so far. And I'm just going to try and switch so I can see you. Sorry, I've just lost you guys. Right, there we go. All right. So for our activities, there's a few points that need to come through for our activities. I'm looking at the wrong form. Sorry, I've just lost all my notes. There we go. So ask your line leaders to help where possible. So our activities team are absolutely fantastic, and they're doing so much to ensure that our youth members have a positive time at Kangaree. So please ask them to get involved when the activity leaders ask, whether that is a scout, adventurer, rover, or adult. Get in and help. But also importantly, as a Kangaree unit leader, it's your responsibility to lead by example when it comes to this. So please jump in and get involved. The activities leaders' roles is to actually run the event. And so it's your responsibility as leaders who are with our youth members to do things like controlling behaviour, to facilitate our youth receiving first aid or wellbeing support during the events if that's needed, to allow for our activities leaders to actually run through the event. Service leaders on your bus will need to check in with their activity leader or their general manager. The activity leaders and general managers will send a welcome email that has all the information that they will need to know. So for instance, Wombat Hollow's activity leaders, they need to get straight to Wombat Hollow once they get there. So what we're going to ask them to do is we're going to ask someone, you guys as the unit leaders, to actually mind their gear. Put their gear with all of your stuff for that time so that they can get straight to their activities so our youth are being supported. Something, and this comes from a really big passion of mine, I've done Kangarees as a leader, a rover, and as a venturer. We are a youth organisation. We support the development of youth in all areas of life. That means we are supporting our youth who are taking on both participate, assist, and leads at Kangaree. So that means our youth team as well. Please treat all members of our Kangaree team with respect and the dignity that they deserve, and follow our Scout promise and law. So we need to really pull that down to all of our line leaders as well. There is no reason to speak to a venturer, a scout, rover, or any adult running any part of our event or supporting our event in any way with any form of disrespect. And that's actually not tolerated at our site. So please treat everyone with respect. That is just a really big thing for me, because I don't like going and putting in a bunch of hard work to then have someone talk to me with a lot of disrespect. And I'm sure you wouldn't like that either. Okay, so that's about it. So for activities, that's about it. We just need you to make sure you're being active. You might have some activities that said there's a really nice tree over there. Grab a seat, have a 10-minute sit down, finish your coffee, enjoy a little bit of rest. We know you've had a full-on afternoon. But there might be some activities, some more hands-on activities, where you might need to actually just jump in and support them a little bit more, and that is fine. All right, sites and services. So this is a little bit from our sites and services team. Now, the first thing is those that want to come and set up their camp early. Our site will be open from 9 a.m. on Thursday and will be open until the Friday. All vehicles at 9 a.m. on the Friday must be off-site. We have a car park on site that is just further down the hill. Your car must be off-site. That also includes trailers. There is to be no trailers left on the unit campsites. Remember, we do camp on a hill, and I don't want the risk of trailers moving without us wanting them to. So, trailers in the car park. If you have left a vehicle or a trailer on the site, you will have a bit of a meeting and a chat with our risk and safety team. Trailers can be moved, and it will have to happen. It is safe. It's for the safety of everyone at the camp. Both the camping ground and pavilion sleeping areas will be sent out really soon. So our units have obviously only just been finalised being allocated. It was a massive job that our administration team had to do. So now that we know the unit sizes, we can appropriately work out the sizes that each area needs. The majority of the units, and this is the amazing part of how we have done Kangaree unit allocations this year, Jackie and Natasha have worked tirelessly to make sure that you are with people that within your regions, pretty much almost. There is some minor exceptions, but you will be with your regions as much as possible. So your camping areas will be with people you know. We're going to separate those allocations and they will be out very, very shortly. Our business manager, Michael Thomas, and our site and service manager, Josh, will be meeting on Monday to get that all blocked out. With any sort of tent, shelter, anything, we say this every year, but it happens every year. Remember, we are in a really big open space. So wind comes through there and it comes through very, very quickly and sometimes can be quite strong. If you've done a couple of Kangarees now, you might remember the one where things went flying. This is part of our health and safety. We need to ensure our tents are tied and secured appropriately, and same with any shelters. Please consider the needs of shelters. Jess has done an amazing job. Jess is sitting down and having sit-down meals for every meal. You don't need a dining shelter. I understand you may want a shelter between a couple of groups. Just as leaders, you might need to stand there and wait for the youth to go to sleep. And if it's spitting or raining or really sunny, you want some shade or shelter. That's fine. They must be tied down. We will be having our scouts. We've got some of our scouts coming as well. So they're absolutely fantastic. And they're going to be working as a little camping patrol. They're going to be coming down and checking how you have your campsite set up. And they'll be telling you if you don't have your guy ropes out, if you have tents or shelters that aren't secure. And they'll be coming along with our risk and safety team to make sure your campsites are actually safe. So please, if a scout comes along and you see someone in a green shirt come and ask you to please tie down your shelter, follow their instructions because they're doing it on behalf of myself and our team and to make sure our site is safe. We do have a risk and safety team at Kangaree who is doing an amazing job. Chris has been talking about our EMC, so our event management or our emergency management centre. They have one job. They also have a job which is to monitor and map things like weather. They're just sending out people checking our activities are safe, looking at our campsite. Now, obviously, if you see a risk concern, so our OH&S hazard or something that you think is a concern, you need to report that to us so we can go and address it. Don't just think, oh, someone else sort of already addressed that issue, because they might not. And if we all have that mindset, then it might not actually get addressed and things can get missed. So if you see a concern and you see a risk and safety concern, I'm going to ask you go to speak to the wonderful administration team so they can speak to our safety guys and go and check it out and make sure we're all being safe. So we've mentioned because of COVID, we would prefer youth to be in a 4 to 6 man tent and where possible, adults to be on their own. With that, we can't afford to have every adult have a 6 man tent to themselves. It's a 2-night camp and a 6 man tent for 2 nights might be a little bit overkill, particularly when we're trying to house so many people. So we have over 2,000 people coming to this site and we have under 500 people in the pavilion. We've currently got the greatest Joey Scout camp at one time. So this has been the largest numbers we've ever had camping on one site. So we need to make sure they can all fit. So please, if you could consider things like hike tents as adults for the 2 nights, if possible, and if applicable to your personal situation, that will help us ensure that everyone fits in the sites comfortably. Consider your arrival time and your first activity and meal times. Have a look at your timetables. Maybe have a bit of a chat about how you're going to set up your tents and your campsites. Now, our Joey Scouts are very capable people. Part of OAS Stage 1 camping is to participate in camping activities, which part of that includes setting up their beds, setting up tents, get them involved in it. Have a look at your schedule and work out when you can set up tents. And if the Joey Scouts can be involved, get them involved. It is their camp. They should be part of it. Now, with that, please do not be late for your activities or meal times. At the rotation time, activities have to move on. If you're setting up the camp and you arrive 15 minutes late, that means your activity is 15 minutes shorter. Jess is going to do her very best to make sure everyone sticks to that time frame. So we need to make sure that Jess is supported. And if you're mucking around in your campsites and rock up to catering late, that's going to throw out the timetable for everyone else. So it's a bit of a communal responsibility to making sure we're not spending all this time in our tents and our camping area and missing out on any times. please stick to that timetable as much as possible. We know that we're dealing with 5 to 8 year olds, so they are unpredictable at times. So we do understand there can be some slight hiccups along the way, but where possible, let's help each other out. Just checking on my notes. Okay, so that's all that I currently have. Up on the screen, I've tried to collate anything that you may have potentially missed. So if you have a general question about buses or any general part of Kangaree, you need to email info@kangaree.com.au. That will go through to our amazing Jackie and Natasha, who will then pass it on to the correct area if they can't answer it themselves. If you have a catering question or you need help with understanding or supporting anyone with a modified diet, you need to contact catering@kangaree.com.au so that Jess and her team can support you there. That includes if you see something and you might be looking at their operoo and something might be not quite marrying up, email Jess as soon as you do. If you don't wait to go through everything and then get to the day, email Jess as soon as you know anything if you think something's not matching up. That's really important for Jess. If you have a wellbeing concern, where possible, flick it through to info@kangaree.com.au. That, because what we have to remember is our people and wellbeing team are made up of multiple small teams. So sometimes it's just as easy and just as quick for us to email info@Kangaree. Obviously, Janice has already said that if you have an operoo-based concern, to email health@kangaree.com.au, because that means Janice can provide the right support for operoo. That's also got the line for child safety. I would just recommend, as Scouters, have that in your phone at all times. That's been in my phone for a very long time, and same with our emergency line. Okay. Now, Cara, can you help us out to facilitate any of the last questions, please? Where do we need to flick to?
Okay, let's stop sharing. Do you want to?
I can stop sharing, of course.
All right. Give me 1 second. So this one's for Janice. Do we give injections or is this a qualified nurse role?
No, well, so the children that do have injections are all bringing a carer with them that I can see. If you have one that is not bringing a carer with them, then you need to have a conversation with me. So those ones that are receiving injections have a carer with them and they would be dealing with that. We can certainly assist with a place for them to do that and with places to store their equipment. Again, talk to me. But no, injections would be given by someone up in the first aid post, one of the nurses or the doctors.
Great. I'll keep going for you, Janice. Will rat tests be available on site if there's any COVID exposure, or should we have a few with us?
Okay, so if you have anyone experiencing COVID-like symptoms, you would put a mask on them if they're over 8 years of age, and you would bring them up to the first aid post where we can assess them and we will have tests up there to test them.
Will you have masks for close contacts or should we bring extras?
You should certainly bring extras.
I think this one was responded in the chat, but masks on buses for everyone?
Yeah, so they're considered public transport under the healthy thingy. So buses should all, unless there's an exemption, just consider it as public transport. So they should be wearing masks.
So anyone over 8?
Over 8, yes. So that's the important bit. So that's mostly your adults and your others.
Who will get access to operoo in the unit?
Kangaree unit leaders will definitely get access. And if you nominate a first aider or a health and wellbeing person within your team, we will get them access as well.
Janice, have you spoken about the signing of?
I did put it in the chat. So what's going to happen over this weekend is that you will receive an e-form from operoo outlining your responsibilities with operoo in terms of privacy and retention of information. You'll be asked to agree to that and accept that. And then after that, sometime in the early part of the week, you'll be given access to operoo.
Perfect. Thank you, Janice. This one is for Jess. Are the Joeys offered cordial or just water? And will there be an area to wash drink bottles if they need washing?
Great question. So yes, there will be water and cordial. Cordial isn't necessarily a bad thing. They will burn off energy, so please feel free to let them have some cordial. Drink bottles, if they need washing, there's drinking water all around the site where you should be able to do any basic washing of a drink bottle. If you need anything more serious than that to wash a drink bottle, though, ask someone in the catering team and we will probably be able to help you out. But you know, if just swishing a bit of water through the drink bottle to clean it through is enough, then there's taps all around the place.
Excellent.
Sorry, I'm just going to pop in here. Any badge questions we've already mentioned in the chat, email info@Kangaree, please.
Excellent. Jackie, just lost the question. How can I see who is on the bus with me as opposed to who is eating with me?
Okay, so when the bus allocation stuff is being done next, you will then be able to see that information after that process has been done. At the moment, we've been focusing on getting the units together so that we could get catering sorted and activities sorted out. The buses are our next step. There'll be information out fairly soon.
James, is the scarf to be mailed or will it be given on the first day?
So your merchandise is all handed out when you get to the bus. So your merchandise, Jackie and her team will come and they'll give you all your wristbands. They will give you your water bottles and they'll give you your scarves.
Excellent. I think, unless I've missed your question and you want to pop it in the chat real quickly, any further questions, and these answers will be published along with the recordings and the slides and be sent out to everybody.
There was one question about camping with the whole unit. Yes, you will be camping with your unit all together in the one space. And there was another question about parents and leaders who are on activities. Are they going to be camping with them? And they will be camping in the activities camping space.
Can I just add into that though, just to clarify, when there are leaders from your home group or activity leaders who haven't been assigned to your unit, that means they're not eating with your unit. So if they've been assigned to activities or the wellbeing team or sites and services team or catering team, if they've been assigned to one of those service or activity leader roles, then that means they're not eating with your unit, with the Joeys. There won't be enough space at the table for them. There won't be enough food at the table for them. They need to eat with the service and activity leaders in the service and activity leader dining hall. They're not actually in your unit for the purposes of Kangaree.
Perfect. All right. We do need to wrap up. We have kept you long enough, and there is the Kangaree team are drastically doing our little bits and pieces in the background, and so we're actually moving into our own meeting to make sure we're getting all of those final things ready to go. So we do thank you for your time. Just as you're leaving, I'm going to reshare my screen that has all of those details up on them again. If you have any questions you need, sorry, I think all my boxes are in the way. If you have any issues or any questions, please contact the right person for that. And thank you all for coming this afternoon. It's been amazing to see you. And we all can't wait to see you at Kangaree. And it's only a few weeks away, so please make sure we're still getting everyone really excited because it's going to be an awesome activity. And we'll see you there. Thank you.